Um, let me start off by stating the obvious. We are just getting a glimpse of the Democrats' budget, their spending and tax packages, and in many ways we're learning about it as you are at the same time. So it's difficult to understand all the specifics, but we certainly have taken a look at the broad outlines. And I guess the best word to sum up what we've seen so far is disappointment. Disappointment in a process where for the last several months, Democrats, Republicans have talked about working together. We have talked about the fact that this historic economic crisis demands and the people expect that we, eschew business as usual. That we sit down and work together to help protect the people of the state of Connecticut and solve our budget crisis together. That's when we are at our best. Yet today, we are dealt more of the same. I had a conversation last night with a first-term legislator who said to me, John, I never imagined I would have the great opportunity to be elected to the Connecticut legislature in historically tough times, and I'm ready to tackle the challenges, and yet I'm going to get to Hartford tomorrow. I'm going to see a budget at 9 o'clock that I haven't seen, my input hasn't been sought, and I'm going to be expected to vote on it just hours later. None of my constituents have seen this, and I'm just getting a look at it. It just doesn't seem right. That first-term legislator's advice is very wise because he is right. We're getting business as usual in times that demand us to do things differently. We're also disappointed in the product. The very hard work, and it is hard work, necessary to reinvent government, to make government smaller yet more efficient, has not been done. The real savings and reduction in the size of our state budget and state government, which are demanded in these tough economic times, the very choices that every single family across the state of Connecticut has been forced to make by this economic crisis, the very tough choices about cutting personnel, trimming costs that every business, small, medium, and large, across the state of Connecticut has been forced to make because of this economic crisis. Those choices have yet to be made by this legislature and are not included in the Democrat budget before us. Rather, it is more of the same. And sadly, we are presented with a budget which has what I think we'll see when all the numbers are in is the largest tax increase in our state's history. Historic increases in corporate surcharges, in income taxes, and other tax increases across the board. Sales taxes in certain areas are going up as well, it appears. People cannot afford additional burdens right now. We've been hearing how tough it is. We know how tough it is for people. And to reach into the pockets of the citizens of the state of Connecticut and to get more money is not the answer at this time until we have done all of the hard work necessary to reduce the size of government. Lastly, we are disappointed, and I would say frightened, for my word, in the enormous levels of borrowing. The amount of borrowing necessary to balance the 2009, 10, and 11 budgets is, in a word, irresponsible. Not too long ago, Democrats and Republicans and the governor had agreed to use a portion of our rainy day fund to balance the 2009 budget deficit. Now we are told that none of the rainy day fund will be used to balance the 2009 deficit. Rather, we will borrow all of the money needed to balance this year's deficit, which the comptroller, a Democrat, yesterday said was over $1 billion. Since October, Representative Cafaro and myself, House and Senate Republicans, have been saying we need to address our 2009 budget deficit. and that the longer we wait, the harder the choices will become. And as we continue to ignore that budget deficit, we will leave ourselves with bad choices: borrowing, raising taxes retroactively, or raiding the rainy day fund. What we said would happen in October has come true. And that is a shame. And the level of borrowing needed to balance our books in '09 is simply irresponsible. And let me just say, there isn't a family in the state of Connecticut who could get away with this. There isn't a family in the state of Connecticut who could simply say, we're going to continue to spend like we spend, even though we don't have the money, and we'll just go out and borrow it. It makes no sense. It's a huge mistake. And we are disappointed in that result. Let me just lastly say, before I turn it over to Larry Cafaro, we're going to have a vote, obviously, today in the Appropriations Committee and the Finance Committee. And we assume next week the House and Senate will take this budget up for final passage. And we will obviously talk to and have a conversation with our constituents and people all across the state of Connecticut about this budget and how it heads us down the wrong path.